Meteorologist Kim Castro, we are cutting in because of some really active storms that have taken shape and started rotating. If you have woken up early this morning because of the loud storms, know that they are capable of producing tornadoes. And we do have a brand new tornado warning for a small area, but it is pushing north closer towards the Katy Freeway, moving into Fort Bend County. This is radar indicated rotation, so if you are in Kendleton or perhaps any of these areas in its path, it's moving north at 15 miles an hour. So Prairie Grove Church, historical marker, again, Kendleton, Power Point, Ward Air Park, or Tavener. This is the time where you should go in your interior space. So the area in your home that is furthest away from the exterior walls or windows. Radar is picking up on some strengthening in this cell, and not just wind that's gusting at around 60 miles an hour, but actually starting to turn. There's also a potential for some small hail within this particular cell. So I'm going to take you in close to actually show you the rotation that radar is picking up on. So you'll notice that little couplet there. That's the signature that the National Weather Service has picked up on that has piqued their interest. So when we have a little couplet that is moving in a way that the outside air is not, so in opposition to it, that's when we know there's storm motion within the cell that could be rotating. So for context, the green that you see shaded there is air that's moving towards the radar, and the red is air that's moving away from the radar. So we know that there's at least some sort of couplet. So this is just east of Hungerford, west of Needville, heading into Beasley, right along FM 360 Road. I want to show you the big picture. There's really loud thunder being produced with this cell too. Again, just west of Needville, going closer to East Bernard, and it is moving north. However, I see it taking a little bit of a shift towards the northeast as well. So if you are in the Richmond area, if you're in Sugar Land, perhaps this woke you up. The loud rain, it's heavy rainfall now at this point, and then also the frequent flashes of lightning. I know getting into work early this morning, it is lit up across the area. Another point of interest that I want you to keep in mind before we get to today's storm threat, how long it lasts, etc. There's a couple of really strong storms that are riding along the coastline too that I've been paying close attention to as well. For now though, the main focus is this tornado warning. If you are just waking up and just turning on the TV to find out what's going on, because it is really loud out there, perhaps you've heard even the trees rattling with the strength of this wind, there is an active tornado warning right now moving into Fort Bend County. This is west of Needville. It's east of Glen Flora, pushing north towards East Bernard at about 15 miles an hour. So it's moving fairly slowly, so we'll have to watch that pretty closely. And look how electrified that cell is over Palacios. This is a severe thunderstorm warning along the coastline. We'll be watching this for a minute, it says, this particular warning. However, I wouldn't be surprised, given how strong the storm is still holding, if the National Weather Service continues to expand that. Yep, a brand new severe thunderstorm warning issued right now for Matagorda. And this is because of some gusty straight line wind at this point at 60 miles an hour, and the potential of 1-inch hail in diameter. So let's see if that is producing hail at this point. And it is pretty sizable hail. In fact, this could be a severe cell that's just south of Palacios. Notice radar is picking up on small hail, but also in the heart of the thunderstorm cell, hail that's starting to gain some size. So 1 inch in diameter, perhaps pushing closer to 2 inches. We'll have to watch that really closely. That's continuing to track really slowly towards the northeast, and this one's moving at only about 10 miles an hour. So not only do we have to worry about the wind and the hail, but a really sizable amount of rainfall coming down in a short amount of time. I want to see if there's any issue as far as velocity is concerned. So notice no couplets. There was one a little bit earlier on in the morning, maybe about 10 minutes ago, but it looks like that couplet has now kind of consolidated. And I do want to stop radar here really quickly so we can get in close to the thunderstorm cell and kind of get a little measurement of what the wind speeds are like with these storms and what you can expect as they start building into your neighborhood. So let's take a little sample. Yeah, about 40 miles an hour, 30, 40. Let's see some of those brighter reflectivities. Yeah, 20, 30, 40. Okay, let's take you back out though to the tornado warning, because that is why we cut into your programming in case you were up either late or pretty early watching the news. We have some rotation with these storms that have been building in along the coastline. I'm going to take you close to where we're tracking rotation on radar. It's that polygon that the National Weather Service has highlighted. Lots of lightning, of course, very heavy rain, but also radar indicated rotation. So that is in the Hungerford area, just east of there, moving into FM 360 Road. I'm going to get a feel for the rotation now. There's the couplet. Okay, it looks like it's becoming more muddled. However, we're going to keep an eye on this in case it redevelops. So you saw the couplet really visible right there, that green and the sea of red, and now it's becoming more jumbled. So we'll watch this. We'll stay with you through the entirety of this tornado warning. The National Weather sometimes expires the warning early, or they extend it just based on if we see any tightening of that cell. And you know what? I'm going to take you actually closer to that other radar, because that's where we get the better, even though it's a little southwest. I would love for it to be a little closer for a better view. I want to stay on that radar. Okay, so this couplet is passed over Dinsmore, passed through Burr, and then is continuing to move north. So let's kind of follow along with it. We lose that radar, but that's okay. I do want to show you where that rotation was headed. So right now, it's just south of Kendleton. So this is along 5969, and it should be right over your neighborhood here in the next 2 minutes or so. So if you do live in Kendleton and you're waking up with us this morning wondering why the news is on already, it's because we have an active tornado warning. The National Weather Service is tracking some strong storms developing this morning, and one of which has shown the capability of rotation. It's not confirmed on the ground, but this is the time where we would take shelter. So Kendleton up next, and then Powell Point right after that. Notice the polygon doesn't extend there just yet. We'll wait and watch to see if the National Weather Service continues pushing this north, because the cell is moving north. It's moving pretty slow at about 15 miles an hour. I'm going to see if we can pick up on any debris. So this is what we call the correlation coefficient. And what it does is that it scans the atmosphere to see if there's any debris being picked up from the ground and flung up into the atmosphere. No debris signature there, which is good news. But again, this is the polygon. This actually gives you a better view as to the area that is under the gun for the potential of a tornado. So just north of Burr, moving into Kendleton, along FM 360 Road. And just shy of Beasley, this is along 5969. And then there's Fort Bend County, and Richmond is right northeast of there. So southwest of Pleak, that's where we're seeing this thunderstorm cell that's began to rotate. Okay, I'm going to take you back out to radar and show you how intense the storm is. Notice though, a good marker is that the lightning count has started to go down just a little bit. I'm hoping that this storm is losing its juice, which it looks like it is. So we have a day that is really prime and ready for severe thunderstorms and the potential of some tornadoes. We're starting off pretty early. The actual line that we're going to be tracking throughout the day is a ways away still. So I'm going to show you where that line is. It's past the I-35 corridor, and really this is going to be the rainmaker for your morning commute, although already we're starting to see that sea breeze, the impulse of energy out of the Gulf, trying to meet up with that front. And once these two meet up, that's when I think we could see a couple of stronger, more disruptive storms closer towards the heart of the city. So that's what we're getting ready for. But again, already tracking some really sizable hail along the coastline for Matagorda, in addition to that tornado warning. So let's take you back out close to both of them, because we're still watching the potential of rotation until 4 o'clock in the morning. So for the next 8 or 9 minutes, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this particular cell. And look, some weakening, but not significant enough for the National Weather Service to lift this warning just yet. Let's check back and look at what the rotation has been looking like, and even get a scan for what the wind is like, because even if the rotation isn't reaching the ground, and notice now it's kind of taking a little bit of a westerly turn. I'm looking at that bright spot that's pushing towards 59, 69, closer to Wharton. So it looks like it's shifted a little bit. We'll take a sample of the wind right there, and I will stop the scan. This is velocity, by the way, so it does detect rotation, but it also picks up on wind. So that's some significant wind coming out of this cell, regardless of if it's rotating or not. 50 to around 60 miles an hour. I'm going to step off and see if the National Weather Service has seen any reports or what their take is on this tornado warning. They are going to allow the severe thunderstorm warning that's near Matagorda to expire here soon, but there are a number of spots where they are tracking some really gusty wind. So we'll expand this velocity to kind of take a look neighborhood by neighborhood to see where we're tracking the strongest wind at this point, because again, velocity looks at potential couplets, but also areas that are seeing some really significant and potentially damaging wind. So damaging wind starts at around 58 miles an hour. So that's what prompts a severe thunderstorm warning. If wind gets up that high, that's the type of wind that could knock down trees, could certainly knock down power, create hazards for the neighboring communities. So notice there's some really bright signatures that are now pushing from Matagorda, looks closer towards Wharton, and a pretty significant signature there as well, where we're looking at that tornado warning. Now, if you're just joining us again this morning, I am going to show you where the tornado warning is. That couplet in particular is moving to the north at around 10 miles an hour. So I'm going to put a track on this so you can kind of have a look at when your particular neighborhood would be impacted. So let's do this cone actually. All right, so that's the center of it just about. And moving it around 10 miles an hour to the north puts it over Kendleton here coming up in the next 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. Powell Point at around 4:20, Powell Point Elementary School. So the surrounding area is really, this is a pretty consolidated cell here, so it is going to impact a very particular neighborhood. But again, watching this until the National Weather Service allows it to expire. Okay, we'll take you back out towards velocity, because I think that's really what's catching our eye in a more widespread view. So, okay, looks like this couplet has dissipated. We'll stay with you for the next 5 minutes or so until the tornado warning expires, because anytime there's a tornado warning, I mean, we gotta let you know what action you need to take. Of course, when there's wind, we'll warn you about it, but especially because straight line wind or rotating wind, it's the same drill. So try to get away from exterior walls and windows. So anytime we see some really strong wind, especially a signature that's a little bit bigger and expanding, moving closer towards us, at that point we will once again come back on the TV side and give you a heads up about that. So a couple of different areas that are showing some really strong wind, and one of those headed for Bay City. So let's take our little hand tracker there and give you a zoom at that cell, which again has a severe thunderstorm warning for the next 15 minutes. So that's an area of interest right now. So really close to Kenville, moving towards the north and east at about 15 miles an hour. We're going to stop the clock there and take a sample of the atmosphere to show you, some of these bright spots right there. That's going to be, that's your 60-mile-an-hour wind gust. So that straight line wind is definitely doing damage. I would not be surprised if you get woken up with these storms for how loud they are and realize you do not have power. Okay, it looks like we're getting another scan of the atmosphere, so we lost velocity there, but we'll get it back soon. We'll take you back out to radar, and I'll give you a wide view as to what we're looking at. So tracking, lots of moisture moving into the area and the potential for severe weather. I'm going to take you through the plan for today, and we'll come back to this tornado warning. All right, for today, we've enacted a weather impact alert. It begins bright and early and it lasts us through 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're tracking some gusty storms with the potential of severe weather and heavy rain. You need to drive cautiously. If you're at home, you need to be prepared to seek shelter. So this is a pretty good representation of what's going on right now. Storms building in from the Gulf, a line racing from the I-35 corridor. These are going to clash, and these are going to bring us a severe threat. Notice it intensifies through 5. That's why our weather impact alert starts there, but we're even getting started on severe weather earlier than that. You'll continue to see heavy rain, potential for severe storms, some of which could be rotating, and this is going to take you through the commute. Notice how slow that line moves. That also gives us a flood threat for today. Pushes off towards the coastline by about 4 o'clock, and then we quiet down. Severe threat for today is a level 1 on the 1 to 5 scale, but as we saw, when the threat's there, you got to be prepared. So wind and isolated tornadoes are possible. There is a lot of fuel in the atmosphere. It's going to get eaten up today. And then we take a break for the evening. Flood risk today, this is brand new, has gone way up because of how slow these storms are moving and they're training. So you'll notice now we're under threat level 3 on the 1 to 4 scale. There's more flood threats coming in tomorrow. So a flood watch has been enacted, and there's your tornado warning that we're watching right now. So pushing from Wharton County on to the southwest side of Fort Bend. It is ongoing until 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's set to expire here in just shy of a minute. I'll be back on radar to make sure it does. Severe threat today is a concern, so is flooding. Notice rain chances continue Friday into Saturday. So if you're just waking up this morning, please have a way to get alerts to your phone, especially if you are going to be away from your TVs and this is not a way that you'll be able to get warnings throughout the day. Have a way to receive them, because there's different threats that we're tracking today. Closer to the coastline, there's a hail threat and there's a wind threat. And then closer towards Fort Bend, we are watching a severe thunderstorm warning. Oh, it looks like I did not load the show here. Okay. So throughout the day, if we do have a tornado warning that pops up, we will warn you about it here on the TV side. We will stay with you until that warning is allowed to expire. For the time being, let's have a check at if there's any more rotation going on here, or whether or not this storm is starting to quiet down. It is starting to get a lot more electricity here, but it has been allowed to expire. So luckily, how we saw velocity kind of broke the storm apart. Now this one has been allowed to breathe. All right, we're gonna be live starting at 5 in the morning. Check back in with us so we can have an update as to how these storms are progressing. We'll see you back here in about an hour.
Tell the federal government to leave Los Angeles. Not far from downtown LA, National Guard troops spent the day training to control violent crowds. Dozens